All right, get ready, because today we're going deep into a what if. It's exciting, but also kind of scary. What if that Stargate, that portal to adventure and, ancient secrets, popped up in the grim darkness of Warhammer 40K?
That is fascinating to think about. It's like throwing a wrench into this universe that's already brutal and chaotic. You've got the Imperium of Man barely hanging on against these crazy threats, and suddenly, boom, a doorway to maybe thousands of new worlds, and who knows what else shows up.
Right, and to set this up for the listeners out there, let's picture that famous scene from the Stargate movie, where the team goes through that shimmering portal, expecting a desert planet, Abydos. But instead,
Instead of a desert, they end up in a place that's been totally shaped by the Imperium, by that unique blend of technology and, well, their dogma.
yeah, it's like their tech is powerful, but they're almost afraid of it too.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. It's controlled by the Adeptus Mechanicus, and they treat machines more like holy relics than actual tools.
Now that's culture shock. So no ancient Egyptians. Instead, maybe you get a feudal world, with knights and these huge walkers fighting monsters that are like straight out of nightmares. Or maybe they land right in the middle of a hive city,
Yeah.
like one of those huge cities where just surviving is a fight every day.
Precisely. The Stargate could lead to any part of the Imperium's territory,
Okay.
all those different places, but it's way more than just a change of scenery.
Right. Finding the Stargate would be a massive deal for the Imperium. Huge.
Absolutely.
So let's break this down. This tech, it's way beyond anything they have. How do you think they'd react to something that basically breaks their understanding of the universe?
It's tough to say for sure. That's what makes this so interesting. There's that tension,
Mhm.
between the good stuff it could bring and the danger. On the one hand, it's access to resources, to places that are strategically important, maybe even human technology that's been lost since, way before the Age of Strife.
But on the other hand,
On the other hand, it's a door to the unknown, and the Imperium is afraid of the unknown, almost as much as chaos itself. Opening a Stargate, it could unleash all kinds of horrors from the warp, attract demons, or something even worse.
and don't forget the power struggles inside the Imperium. Controlling that Stargate, that would be a huge prize. You'd have all these factions fighting to be in charge, each with their own plan for it.
Right. Like, imagine the Adeptus Mechanicus trying to figure out its secrets, maybe saying it was a gift from the Emperor, or the Inquisition saying it's heresy and wanting to control it or even destroy it.
And then there are the Space Marines, always ready for a new way to deliver the Emperor's justice, right?
Mhm.
They might want to turn the Stargate into the ultimate weapon. Huh?
Oh, absolutely. There's so many possibilities there. And that's before we even think about what's waiting on the other side.
Which brings up another big question. If we're redoing the Stargate movie, but in 40K, who's the bad guy? Who takes Rey's place? We need someone who really captures that darkness and danger of this universe.
We need an antagonist who's a threat to the explorers, but also, fits with the whole idea of Warhammer 40K. I think we've got a few good options.
So let's start with a classic, a Chaos Demon Prince. Why does that fit so well with our Stargate 40K story?
Well, it gets at one of the core themes of 40K, like how power corrupts and how chaos is always there, a threat. So picture a Space Marine champion, a powerful one, tempted by the promises of the warp. And now he's twisted into this monstrous being with pure psychic power.
Yeah, it's like he represents how tempting forbidden knowledge is, and how even the best heroes can fall.
Exactly. And visually, a demon prince is perfect, like a nightmare come to life, the embodiment of everything the Imperium fears.
Okay, he's definitely a strong contender. But what about another classic 40K faction? The Necrons. What if instead of Ra, we have a Necron overlord? A being of, ancient tech and this total indifference to everything.
That's a good one. It highlights how different the Imperium's technology is from what they're up against. The Necrons, they've mastered things that the Imperium can barely understand. They're ancient, they don't stop, and they feel absolutely nothing.
They're a different kind of scary compared to chaos, right? It's
Yeah.
like cold, uncaring logic. They see humanity as, what, just something in their way?
Yeah, like an obstacle. Imagine our explorers meet a Necron overlord, this mechanical being radiating power and danger. They'd realize fast that their weapons, their tactics are useless.
It'd be terrifying, old versus new, but even the best Imperium weapons are like toys to the Necrons' tech.
Yeah, exactly. But then there's another option, one that really shows the pure chaotic energy of 40K. An orc war boss.
Now you're talking. Orcs are all about brute force, tons of them, and they just love to fight.
Yeah.
It's crazy. How would a war boss as our villain change the story?
It would become a fight for survival on a whole other level. No more subtle tactics, no diplomacy. An orc war boss doesn't want to negotiate or conquer. He wants to smash everything.
The Stargate would be like a doorway for a wall. Just endless orcs and their crude but deadly tech pouring through. That would truly test the Imperium's strength. A desperate fight against an enemy that never stops.
And for our explorers, it'd be a brutal introduction to 40K. A fight to survive against an enemy that, is the chaos of this universe.
But there's one more option for who could replace Ra, one that's really sneaky.
Oh, you're right. The Gene Stealer Patriarch. That brings a different kind of horror to the story. A threat that's more subtle, working from inside the Imperium.
So instead of a big fight right away, our explorers are on a planet that's already been messed with, corrupted by a gene stealer cult.
Exactly. Imagine the tension when they realize the people around them might not be what they seem, that they're fighting an enemy that's already deep inside.
It's like a horror movie, but with that 40K twist. And it shows another big theme: betrayal, and how sneaky the Imperium's enemies can be.
You're right. Each of these villains would change the Stargate 40K story in a big way. They highlight different parts of the 40K universe, different dangers, and how our explorers could be challenged.
So we've talked about the threats, but let's think about the human element of this story. In the movie, we have Colonel O'Neill, the tough soldier, and Daniel Jackson, the expert on, well, everything old. How would they handle the 40K universe?
That's where it gets really interesting. That's where the two universes colliding creates something fascinating. Okay, so picking up where we left off, let's get into how our Stargate guys, O'Neill and Daniel, would deal with the 40K universe. Remember, they're used to a galaxy where humans are just starting to explore. Diplomacy's still on the table. But the 41st millennium, it throws all that out.
Yeah, they're in for a big shock. O'Neill, he's a soldier. He's seen combat. But nothing like 40K. Nothing could prepare him for how brutal the wars are here, how huge they are.
Right. Imagine him watching a space marine attack. Or a WA. Just endless orcs coming at you. That would change his whole idea of what war even is. And Daniel, he's all about understanding other cultures, finding ways to get along. But in 40K, hating anything that's not human, that's basically imperial law.
So how do they handle it? Two guys with views from Earth stuck in a galaxy where humans are just fighting to survive.
That's the question, right? Can they adapt? Can they learn and get rid of their old ideas about how things work? The Stargate movie is all about challenging what you think, seeing things from different sides. That's even more important in 40K.
Yeah, it's not just about staying alive. It's about dealing with all the messed up stuff in this universe. The lines between good and bad are blurry. Doing the right thing might mean giving up what you believe in.
Exactly. Let's say they land on that feudal world we talked about. Knights and walkers fighting monsters. They have to figure out fast who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, and where do they fit in.
And don't forget, it's the Imperium. Even if they find people to help them, they might get in trouble with the Inquisition or some other group that sees them as a threat. They could be called heretics just because their tech doesn't make sense to the Adeptus Mechanicus.
Oh, for sure. Just them being there could mess up the balance of power. They could accidentally start a war, become pawns in some game they don't understand.
Or maybe they could be the ones who change things. Imagine them using their knowledge, their tech, to help those knights fight off an orc invasion or close a warp rift. They could become a symbol of hope, proof that even in a dark time, humans can fight back.
But then that brings up another question. Would the Imperium even allow that? They're very strict, helping a planet that's not even part of the Imperium. O'Neill and Daniel could be seen as going against everything the Imperium stands for.
And that puts them up against the very empire they're from, right? Even if they're trying to do good. That's the 40K dilemma. What you think is right versus what the rules are.
It really shows how complicated morality is in 40K. There are no easy answers, no good guys and bad guys that are clear. Every choice you make has consequences, and they could affect the whole galaxy.
We've been talking a lot about the danger and challenges, but let's not forget about the cool stuff. What amazing things might they find in the 40K universe?
That's what makes this so fun to think about. Imagine them finding ruins from humanity's golden age. Lost tech that could change how the war against chaos goes.
Or what if they find other human civilizations, ones that survived the Age of Strife? Groups that developed in completely different ways.
Think about the cultures mixing, the ideas clashing. It could inspire the Imperium, remind them that even in darkness, humans have so much potential.
But of course, in 40K, discoveries usually come with a price. They could wake up ancient evils, attract chaos, or even become targets for other factions fighting for control.
And that leads us to the bigger picture. It's not just about O'Neill and Daniel. It's about how this one event, the Stargate, could change the whole galaxy. So, yeah, the Stargate showing up in 40K wouldn't be just a small thing. It would affect the whole galaxy, every faction, every war. It could change who's in charge in ways no one can predict.
So it's bigger than just our explorers and their story, right? It's about how this one discovery could flip the whole 40K universe around.
Exactly. Think about the Orcs, how much they love war. If they got Stargate tech, that'd be crazy. They could spread their wah everywhere, go around the Imperium's defenses, chaos on a level we've never seen.
Like opening up a box of green-skinned mayhem all over the galaxy.
And what about the Tyranids? They're already scary, eating whole worlds. Give them the Stargate and they might be unstoppable.
It's not a fun thing to think about. The Stargate could become a weapon for the Imperium's worst enemies, making the fighting worse, pushing humanity closer to being wiped out. But it's not just the enemies we know, right? What about the other factions? The Eldar, the Tau, the Necrons. How would they react to this new thing?
Oh, the Stargate could lead to new alliances, new wars, everything changing. Imagine the Eldar, they're good with the warp. Maybe they use the Stargate to, like, trick their enemies or escape because their race is fading. Or the Tau, they want to expand. Maybe they see it as a way to spread their beliefs to new planets.
It's like adding a whole new piece to the puzzle. Suddenly, who works together, who fights who, it all gets way more complicated.
And that's just the start. We haven't even talked about the warp, the immaterium. What if Chaos uses the Stargate to spread their corruption, rip open reality in new places?
That's a scary thought. The Stargate in Chaos's hands, it could unleash their armies on worlds that aren't ready, making the galaxy even darker.
And in all this chaos, our heroes, O'Neill and Daniel, they'd be right in the middle. They might try to warn the Imperium to keep this tech under control, but would anyone listen?
Knowing the Imperium, probably not. They're more likely to shoot first and ask questions later, especially if it goes against what they believe.
You're right. O'Neill and Daniel could end up being called heretics, hunted by the Inquisition. They'd have to choose their own lives or saving the galaxy.
It's that classic hero story. They find something that could save everyone, but the people they're trying to save, those are the ones who stop them.
Yeah, but maybe, just maybe, they could find help where they don't expect it. Like a group inside the Imperium that's gone rogue, or even, an alien race, one that sees the danger and wants to work together.
That would be a twist. Imagine O'Neill and Daniel working with Eldar or Tau to stop the Stargate tech from getting out of control, to stop the galaxy from tearing itself apart.
It would have to be like a desperate alliance, putting aside old hatreds because there's a bigger threat. And it shows something interesting about 40K. Even the worst enemies might team up if they're all going to be destroyed.
So after all this talk about Stargate 40K, what's the big idea we're left with? It seems like it would just make a bad situation worse.
I think it's more than just being, pessimistic or optimistic. It's about using our imaginations, thinking about what if, seeing familiar things in new ways.
Right, it's about those Stargate themes. Exploration, understanding, connection, and seeing how they work in a universe where those things are always in danger.
Exactly. And it reminds us that even in the darkest places, there's always hope. There's courage. There's that human spirit that keeps going. Even in the 41st millennium, one new idea, one act of defiance could change everything.
So, as we finish up our deep dive, we'll leave you with this. The Stargate in 40K, it represents both amazing possibilities and huge dangers. It shows that even the best tech can be good and bad at the same time. It's up to you, the listeners, to imagine what could happen, explore the consequences, and maybe, just maybe, find some hope in all the darkness. Thanks for joining us on this wild trip through the 41st millennium. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep those imaginations going.